attended a formal school, and his incisive comments about America's far-right currents, a political flow that had engulfed and upended his family. Wearing a t-shirt with a picture of an anime character with a mass of curly blonde hair spilling over his shoulders, Dakota showed us his AR-15 rifle, which he had used to kill deer to feed his family. At times in the recent past, he told me, they had been very, very poor. We knew it would make good footage. Guns were a constant source of fascination for audiences, particularly ones outside the United States. But Dakota also told me of his deep ambivalence about firearms. "I have absolutely no idea whether I like shooting or like being a gun nerd," he told me. Unlike many Americans, his weapons didn't make him feel very safe. It would be hard to stop any deranged militia member seeking some sort of twisted revenge, and he had very little to steal, just a few possessions in a small one-room rented apartment over a garage with a microwave and a hot plate to cook with. The bathroom had no door. He was in a perilous place, at a perilous time, living close to the community which had accommodated his father and his father's militia. Day to day, he was just trying to hold on, working to support the rest of his family, taking classes at a community college, blogging about his experiences in the militia world, working on his art, and every so often, when his schedule allowed it, giving interviews to visiting reporters. The apocalyptic thinking of his upbringing was hard to overcome, and he was carefully watching current events. As we spoke, his father was standing trial in Washington on charges including seditious conspiracy, using force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States. In plain language, trying to keep Donald Trump in the White House. Rhodes was among more than 1,000 rioters arrested for the Capitol Riot. It was one of the biggest criminal investigations in U.S. history. And yet, even years later, even in the wilderness of northwest Montana, the threat of violence still hung heavy in the air. In this town about once a month, I will hear people talking about the need to go door to door and execute Democrats to fix the country, he said. They talk about their desire for Trump's inner circle to overthrow the government and institute a right-wing, authoritarian, one-party state that will simply eliminate all opposition. He paused for a moment and gazed at his firearms, still laid out on the bed among his martial arts awards and a few other scattered possessions. "I've been seriously struggling with the question of whether to finally get rid of all this. It's dirty and dusty from years of storage," he said, pointing to a set of body armor. "But I also have absolutely no confidence in the future course of this country," he told me. "And I generally have little confidence in the ability of the United States to cope with a rising fascist movement that is being excused and downplayed at every turn to preserve an illusion, the illusion of life as normal." Not too long ago, I would have dismissed Dakota's concerns as exaggeration, paranoia, or as a very specific reaction to his unique situation. And even though I've been studying the American far right for years, particularly in its new, highly online forms, I would have seen his father, who wore an eye patch after a gun accident, as a cartoonish character, a villain from the fringes, but far from the centers of power, with little influence beyond his own band of heavily armed men. But soon after I moved back to the United States in the late summer of 2022, I had started to realize that the country I had left more than 2 decades earlier was facing a novel, strange, and hyperactive internal threat, potentially much more serious than any in recent history. My time abroad was punctuated by frequent reporting trips back to the country of my birth, and encounters with all sorts of extremists and novel political actors, alt-righters, neo-Nazis, anti-government agitators, culture warriors, Proud Boys, anti-fascists, Islamist extremists. And in years of covering the online far right, I had witnessed once vanquished ideas travel from those fringes to unexpected places. On a beach in India, I met a teenager who posted memes about the Unabomber and Pepe the Frog. One expert said there were 1 million kids like him all over India, Hindu nationalists inspired by the online antics of their American cousins. In the back of a van traveling through the streets of Kinshasa, the son of an aid worker outlined, sotto voce, his thoughts on the proper roles of the immutable.